A young U.S. Army linguist disappears without a trace in 1993. His car is found abandoned, his military papers left behind. Before vanishing, he told his girlfriend he was on a secret mission. Was he hiding something? Or was someone hiding him? In the summer of 1993, a 20-year-old soldier named Justin Burgwinkel drove across California to visit his girlfriend. He wasn't just another recruit. He had been trained as a Korean linguist, someone entrusted with sensitive communications during the uneasy years after the Cold War. He had discipline, intelligence, and by all accounts, a bright future. But in the days before he vanished, his behavior shifted in unsettling ways. Friends recall his words. To his girlfriend, Justin spoke quietly, almost conspiratorially. He said he was involved in a secret mission. No further explanation, no details. Just those two words that would come to haunt everyone who knew him. Secret mission. Did he truly have classified orders that he could not share? Or was he unraveling under pressures no one else could see? On June 12, 1993, Justin left for what seemed like an ordinary trip. He never came home. Weeks passed, then months. For a while, silence was the only answer his family had. Then came the discovery. His car, abandoned in the parking lot of a hotel. Inside were the things you would expect a man to keep close. His wallet, his military ID, his credit cards, even his bag. Almost as if he had stepped out for a moment and never returned. The Army insisted there was no secret mission, no hidden assignment. Yet, the timing, the words he left behind, and the circumstances of his disappearance raised questions that remain unsolved. Was Justin Burgwinkel running from something? Was he a casualty of something bigger, something we were never meant to see? And so, the mystery lingers. How can a soldier, with everything documented and accounted for, disappear into the cracks of history? The abandoned car raised more questions than answers. Investigators walked around it slowly, noting every detail. The engine was cold, the doors unlocked, and inside lay the very objects that defined his life. His military papers, his credit cards, his identification. If someone was planning to run away, wouldn't those be the first things they would take? Instead, the scene looked staged, like a snapshot of a man who had suddenly evaporated. For his girlfriend, the words he had spoken weeks earlier echoed like a riddle. "I'm on a secret mission." She replayed that phrase over and over in her mind. Was Justin confiding in her? Was he hinting at something he wanted someone to notice if things went wrong? Or was it a sign of mounting stress that no one around him fully understood? The Army's official line was clear. There was no mission. He had no orders that would explain his disappearance, yet the contradiction between the institution's denial and Justin's own words created a haunting gap. Families of soldiers usually take comfort in structure, in knowing that the Army tracks every movement, every assignment. But here, the very system that was supposed to provide certainty gave nothing but silence. In the absence of answers, speculation grew. Some wondered if Justin had been recruited for something off the books, a task so delicate it would never appear in writing. Others believed he may have been battling internal struggles, pressures that made him believe he was part of a narrative larger than himself. Both possibilities unsettled those who knew him best. And still, the simple image remained. A car, abandoned in plain sight, filled with everything that tied a young man to his identity. It was less like a vehicle left behind, and more like a sealed box of questions. What force, visible or hidden, could pull someone away so completely, without leaving even a trail? For Justin's family, the silence was unbearable. Every phone call, every knock at the door carried the hope of news, any news, that might explain where he had gone. His parents described him as dependable, steady, the kind of young man who always checked in. To them, the idea that he would simply walk away didn't make sense. His girlfriend, still replaying their last conversations, found herself trapped between fear and confusion. She wanted to believe he was alive, that his talk of a secret mission meant something. But every day without a word eroded that hope. The Army's explanation, or rather its lack of one, only deepened the wound. Officials repeated that Justin had no classified task, no shadow assignment. On paper, he was simply absent without leave. But for a soldier trained in a critical language, disappearing was more than a personal matter. It carried the weight of national security. If someone with his skills and clearance was missing, could that absence put sensitive information at risk? This was the early 1990s, a time when whispers of espionage still lingered in the air. The Cold War had officially ended, but suspicion between nations had not. Against that backdrop, Justin's disappearance felt more than personal. It felt like a story that might have threads leading into larger, hidden worlds. His family, however, didn't see geopolitics. They saw an empty chair at the dinner table, a missing voice on the phone, and the ache of not knowing. Rumors began to surface. Some speculated he had chosen to run away from military life. Others thought he may have been lured or pressured into something he couldn't escape. For those closest to him, these guesses felt hollow. They wanted facts, but all they had were theories. The unanswered question persisted. Was Justin a runaway soldier, a hidden operative, or a young man caught in a storm no one else could see? Those who saw Justin in the days before he vanished remember a young man who seemed different, as if something heavy weighed on him. He wasn't reckless or careless. His military training kept him disciplined, but his words carried an edge of secrecy that unsettled those around him. His girlfriend recalled how his tone shifted, how his eyes seemed to dart when he spoke of being on a secret mission. It didn't sound like a joke. It didn't sound like fantasy. It sounded like a man warning her without saying too much. Psychologists who study disappearances often point to subtle signs: changes in speech, withdrawal from routines, sudden fixation on cryptic ideas. Sometimes, these signs hint at stress building beneath the surface. Other times, they suggest knowledge of something that cannot be openly shared. With Justin, it was difficult to separate which was which. Was he experiencing the psychological pressure of his work, carrying the burden of information he couldn't release? Or was he quietly unraveling under private struggles no one had recognized? Friends described him as reliable, even quiet. That's why his sudden intensity stood out. He mentioned things out of context, like pieces of a puzzle he never finished explaining. To those closest to him, it felt like being handed fragments of a story without the middle or the end. And then, just like that, the story stopped, because he was gone. What makes his case so haunting is that his actions left room for multiple interpretations. If he was mentally distressed, why abandon his car with everything inside, almost staged? If he truly believed he was on a secret mission, why would the Army deny any record of it? These contradictions blurred the line between a personal crisis and something larger, something hidden. And for those still searching for answers, that uncertainty is its own form of torment. When investigators stepped into Justin's case, they found themselves confronted with contradictions at every turn. On the surface, it was treated as a missing person investigation, but the details made it anything but ordinary. Military authorities classified him as absent without leave, a designation that suggested he had simply walked away from duty. Yet his abandoned car, filled with his most essential belongings, painted an entirely different picture. Local law enforcement worked alongside military investigators, but progress was slow. They retraced his last known steps, his visit to his girlfriend, the final drive that ended with his car at a hotel parking lot. Witnesses offered little. No one could confirm if he checked into the hotel. No one recalled seeing him leave. The trail ended at that parked vehicle, as if the ground had swallowed him whole. The Army's denial of any secret assignment became a sticking point. To investigators, it meant treating the case as desertion, rather than disappearance under unusual circumstances. For his loved ones, it felt like an official wall built to block uncomfortable questions. If he had been struggling emotionally, Why no sign of distress left behind? If he had walked away, why abandon everything that defined his identity? Detectives searched for patterns. They looked into financial records. His credit cards showed no activity. His bank account was untouched. The wallet in the car was a silent clue. No evidence of theft, no sign of forced entry. Whoever left that car behind had simply walked away with nothing. And so, the file began to grow, filled with statements, timelines, and unanswered questions. Investigators could not prove foul play. They could not prove desertion. What remained was a case that sat uneasily in between, too strange to be simple, too empty to resolve. For every clue they found, the absence of the next clue loomed larger. It was less like following a trail and more like staring at a void. As time passed without answers, theories began to multiply. Some whispered of espionage, that Justin's skills as a Korean linguist had drawn him into something far larger than he could handle. The early 1990s were still shadowed by Cold War habits, spies, defectors, and hidden intelligence games. To those who leaned toward this theory, the words "secret mission" were not a slip of the tongue, but a warning sign. If Justin had been caught between competing interests, perhaps his disappearance was no accident at all. Another possibility was more personal. Some believed Justin may have chosen to vanish, that the weight of military life and whatever burdens he carried inside drove him to walk away. But if that were true, why leave behind everything that tethered him to survival? His wallet, his identification, his money. A man intending to start over would take those essentials, not abandon them in a locked car. There were also darker suggestions. Could he have been the victim of foul play? The lack of struggle at the scene made that difficult to prove, but investigators could not dismiss it entirely. If someone wanted him silenced, leaving his car staged with personal belongings would be an effective way to send the message that he had simply walked away. And then came the haunting idea that perhaps both were true, that Justin believed he was part of something secret, and that belief, whether grounded in reality or shaped by psychological strain, put him in danger. If he confided in the wrong person, or if he stepped into circles where secrets carried risks, his words to his girlfriend may have been his only attempt at explanation. The theories didn't bring comfort. They only added layers to a puzzle already impossible to solve. Espionage, voluntary disappearance, foul play. Each option explained a piece, but none explained the whole. What remained constant was the emptiness left behind, a void that deepened as days turned into months and hope shifted into uncertainty.
For Justin's family, the mystery was not an abstract puzzle, it was a wound that never closed. His parents woke each morning, hoping for a phone call, some official update that would finally bring clarity. Instead, what they received were fragments, rumors, and official statements that felt cold against the heat of their grief. His mother held on to the idea that he might still be alive somewhere, carrying out the mission he had once whispered about. His father wrestled with anger at the army, demanding more than the standard explanation, that his son had simply abandoned his post. For his girlfriend, the disappearance was even more intimate. She replayed the last conversations endlessly, wondering if she had missed a hidden message in his words. When Justin told her he was on a secret mission, was he trying to prepare her? Was he asking her to understand something he could not safely explain? Guilt grew alongside grief. She questioned whether she could have stopped him, whether she should have reported his strange behavior sooner. These thoughts became a cycle without resolution, the kind that eats at a person in silence. Friends and fellow soldiers found themselves caught between loyalty and confusion. Some refused to believe he would desert. Others quietly accepted the official line, unwilling to challenge the institution they served. That division mirrored the wider tension. One version of Justin's story painted him as a runaway, another as a young man trapped in forces beyond his control. The passage of time did little to ease the pain. Every new lead that surfaced ended the same way: dead ends, unanswered calls, and paperwork filed away. Yet the absence of certainty made the hurt sharper. not softer. Closure never came. Instead, his family lived with two conflicting realities: the possibility that he was gone forever, and the faint hope that one day, against all odds, he might still return. As weeks turned into months and months into years, Justin's disappearance slowly slipped away from public attention. Newspapers that once printed short updates stopped covering the story. Official reports gathered dust in filing cabinets. Without new leads, the world moved on, but his family, and those closest to him, were left behind in the silence. The mystery didn't fade for them. It only became sharper against the background of everyone else forgetting. In military history, cases like Justin's often end up as footnotes. A soldier goes missing. The official explanation leans toward desertion, and without evidence of foul play, the file quietly closes. But what makes Justin's case stand out is how incomplete it feels. The staged appearance of his car, the cryptic words about a mission, the absence of financial activity. Each piece points away from the simple story of a man walking away. And yet, without proof of something larger, the unanswered questions were never enough to keep the spotlight on him. That fading spotlight is part of the tragedy. A young man with skills critical to national security vanishes under circumstances that defy explanation. And still, the world forgets. Families like his are left to fight alone, carrying their grief without the validation of public recognition. His girlfriend, his parents, his friends, each was left to wrestle with memories that no longer had a place in the news cycle. But forgetting doesn't erase the weight of what happened. Instead, it creates a ghost story within the system itself, a reminder that not everything is accounted for, not every soldier returns, and not every explanation satisfies. In that quiet space where official records end and personal memories remain, Justin's disappearance continues to live on, not as a headline, but as a haunting absence. Justin's disappearance forces us to confront a difficult truth. Not every story has an ending we can hold on to. His case highlights the fragile line between what we believe to be solid, military structure, official records, the expectation of accountability, and the reality that even within those systems, people can vanish. The Army's denial of any mission leaves a gap. His own words about a mission create another. Between those two versions of reality lies a space where families are left to suffer in uncertainty. That uncertainty exposes something larger about trust. We are taught to trust institutions, to assume that in the military, every action is recorded, every movement accounted for. Yet Justin's story shows how even within the most structured environments, gaps exist. When someone goes missing, especially someone with sensitive skills, the silence can feel like a second disappearance, one of truth itself. There's also the human side of secrecy. Whether Justin was caught up in something classified, or whether his own mind convinced him that he was, secrecy isolates. It creates barriers between a person and those who care for them. His girlfriend heard him speak of a secret mission, but she could do nothing with those words. His family waited for official answers that never came. In both cases, secrecy locked the truth away, leaving only speculation. And this is why his case continues to haunt. It isn't just the fact that a soldier went missing. It's that his absence revealed cracks in the very systems built to prevent such mysteries. It showed how easily a life can slip into shadow, and how those left behind are forced to live not with answers, but with endless questions. Questions that remain as raw today as they were in 1993.
Justin Burgwinkel's story ends not with resolution, but with silence. His car remains the last trace of him, a frozen moment in time, a wallet left behind, military papers untouched, a vehicle parked as though he intended to return. But he never did. For his family, for his girlfriend, and for those who served beside him, that silence has become the loudest part of the mystery. What makes his case unforgettable is not only the disappearance itself, but the void it created. The army insists there was no secret mission. Justin himself insisted there was. Between those two positions lies a chasm that no one has ever bridged. Decades later, the file sits unresolved, and the questions feel heavier than any official answer could. Stories like Justin's remind us of how fragile certainty really is. We imagine the world as orderly, every event catalogued, every soldier accounted for. But in reality, there are cracks, moments where truth escapes and is replaced by speculation, memory, and rumor. His disappearance is one of those cracks, a reminder that even in the most structured systems, the unexplained still exists. For those left behind, the hardest part is the not knowing. Was Justin a victim of something larger than himself? Did he choose to vanish, caught between duty and personal struggle? Or was he silenced by forces we will never fully understand? Each possibility opens a door, but none of them close the story. And now, the question falls to us. What do you believe happened to Justin Burgwinkel? Was it espionage, desertion, foul play, or something far more hidden? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that peel back the layers of history's most haunting mysteries. Because sometimes, the most powerful part of a story is not the answer, but the question it leaves behind.